Hello, everyone. This is the developer commentary for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties Remastered, or whatever name we are actually picking for this title. At the time is undecided when we record this. I am the lead producer on this game, Audie Surley, and I'm joined today by the lead programmer on the game, George. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is George. I am the lead programmer on the Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, the new version that we're making. I'm glad to be here, Audie.
Do you have a last name, or are you keeping this out for legal
I'm
reasons?
keeping this out for legal
Okay.
reasons, 100%.
We're also joined by the development lead at Limited Run, and also on this game, Joe Modulewski.
Hi, you just said my name.
Yeah, I'm putting your whole name into this.
Yeah, I'm Joe Modulewski. I'm the development director at Limited Run Games, and I am the director on Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, name TBD at the time
TBD.
of this recording.
That's the final name, actually.
That's the final
That's
name.
a subtitle. So yeah, this commentary, thank you so much for unlocking it in the Plumb the Depths. We're going to go through a little bit of the history of us getting this title on our desks and figuring out what do we do with this. It was quite the journey, and I came in a little bit later. So Joe, why don't you kind of take us through when you heard about the fact that we were doing this the first time?
Yeah, this is one of those things that just sort of floated across my desk one day. Josh had acquired the rights to this and wanted to re-release it in some fashion, but he had no idea what he wanted to do with it. It was just like, we should do something. I think initially the idea was this would be funny. We should do something with this. But I tend to like to take projects and treat them with a seriousness that sometimes maybe they don't deserve, and that ballooned into where this project led. And Audie, you probably remember early on, before you were a part of this project, we spoke about this, and I came to you and I said, hey, I've got some ideas for how I want to approach re-releasing Plumbers. And the general idea was, hey, we should put together a package that isn't necessarily just the game, but it's about the game.
Yeah, I certainly do remember this because at that time, I think my reputation in the games industry was pretty much cemented with Digital Foundry that I know bad games and I know how to do bad games. And yeah, you gave me a call. This is before I was hired by Limited Run. It kind of brought this to my attention, and kind of the idea of we don't want to make this just a joke. We want to do something actually kind of clever here. And we discussed at length how we could make a package about the context of how this game comes to be, but not so much just like remaking it image for image and say like, well, that's it. That's all we do. So I thought the premises of what you guys wanted to do at the time before I joined was kind of interesting, but I was curious how this is going to end up.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we had a base idea. I had an idea in my mind, for lack of a better word, of like what a vibe of this package was going to be, what I wanted to see in the end. But I had no plan on how to get there just yet. It was still really early. We had a lot of other projects we were working on. It was just kind of floating in the background. But I do think you make a really good point that I want to kind of hone in on. We didn't want the package to be a joke. Because really, at the end of the day, if you want to find humor in Plumbers, which is what people have been doing for the past couple decades or whatever, there is no joke about Plumbers funnier than just the content of the game itself, and that can speak for itself. We can't make a package that's one, it doesn't feel appropriate to make a package around it.
Yeah.
Right. That's trying to be funny. And two, if your goal really is to try and be funny, you're not going to make something that's funnier than some of the content in here on its own. So we knew immediately, like, I don't want to lean into that. I think what's way more interesting than any of the laughs people have had about this game is the contextualization of the game, like what the industry was like at the time it was made, how something like this could get made, and the little bit of as much stories we could get about the people who were involved. Everything about that is way more interesting than, hey, let's make fun of this.
And I mean, it might sound completely ridiculous to go into a project like Plumbers Don't Wear Ties and say, well, let's not make fun of it. Like, you would think that's the initial reaction for all developers, just like, well, this is a joke. Let's not treat it as any more than a joke. I've always been of the kind of my comedic thoughts on this is that, well, there's nothing funnier than the actual effort that went into this game, which was quite massive, and we'll get into that throughout this commentary. But yeah, as you were saying, we wanted to kind of make, from before I joined and even after, was we wanted to make a kind of document, an archive of the industry at the time, the medium, the CD-ROM medium. Why was this so important to the games industry? What kind of direction did it go in, and how did that direction lead into the bottom of the barrel where a game like this could exist, right? And at the time when you started on the project, we certainly didn't have access to original documentation, actors, people involved with the game. So
no, none of that stuff had come through yet.
No, that came through pretty late actually, because it took a long time.
Well, that was a lot of effort from your end. So like that was one of those things that I basically had the idea of what I wanted, and I kind of was along for the whole ride to make sure things came along the way I wanted them to come along. But you really took that ball and ran with it. When you came onto this project, you had a very similar vision to me of what it should be, and you kind of really took the momentum and made a lot of these things happen.
Yeah, because at the time when you started the project, way back when you announced it, because this has actually been in active development in some capacity.
I'd be loose with the word active.
Yeah, I mean, hey, activity is, it can be whatever, but it had been kind of active in the company since its announcement. There had been kind of, discussions, sketchings, I mean, like just theoretical sketchings of what this package could be. So there's always been something. And when I joined, you guys had already kind of created a basis for where this wanted to go. And it was easy for me, especially considering you're pretty good at laying out a product. That's one of your kind of special skills. So it was very easy for me to come in as a producer fairly late actually and say like, well, all of this I can build on. This is laid out really well. And the programming as well at the time was fairly well laid out. So how about we kind of introduce, where did George come onto this?
So George came on, I don't remember if George was on this project from the very start, because again, you mentioned when we first announced this, there was a plan.
Yeah.
There was an idea, but that was a while ago.
It was a little later.
I think we intended to ship it within a year.
Yeah.
Of announcement, and then it just sort of ballooned in scope of what we wanted to do. I think, George, you did come later. And then I assigned this to you because I thought it was supposed to be a very small scope project. And I thought, hey, this is a great project, because George is doing development support at this company.
Yeah.
He helps a lot of the developers we work with on external published limited run titles. And I wanted to give George a chance to do a little bit more of what he's educated in, which is programming. So we gave him this.
I don't even remember when this came across my desk, but I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is something that we want to do as a company, huh? Very interesting.
So I want maybe, elaborate isn't the best word, but what I want to do here, George, because there's a couple things that are interesting about this. One, you're the programmer in this, so you had to learn a lot about this game that you'd never heard of before.
Right.
And two, you're a bit younger than us. So the entire industry that spit this game out, you're not really familiar with. So I guess, what were your initial impressions? We're going through some of these scenes now. What are your initial impressions?
I couldn't believe. Well, see, I mean, these were some of the scenes that I was like thinking to myself that surely there was no way a game like this could have come out back in the day. But because from my understanding, this game is even before my time, before I was born. And so I was confused. I was asking questions like, how are we going to get this past, certification? How is any of this going to be? Are we going to include these scenes in this new version? These things just kind of came up, and I didn't know just who to ask about this. I guess you were the one to.
I was the one that you asked, and we, I think I had answers for a lot of this stuff, and you'll see what the answers ended up being in the shipping product that you're watching right now. I almost said playing right now, but this isn't really a game you play. Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that.
That's all what we all aspire to be, is this man on screen, Edward Fasulu. And could talk a little bit about just kind of these actors, at the time. And I'm curious, George, were you familiar with this game at all when you touched it?
I was not familiar with it at all.
You hadn't seen I forget his name. James Rolfe's video.
So that's how I learned more about it. That's
Yeah.
what Joe suggested that I go ahead and watch. And I did watch it, and that's when I got an understanding of what this was.
Well, and I think the understanding you would get from James Rolfe's video, not only does it catch up to speed on what Plumbers is, it really encapsulates what the idea of Plumbers is for the following. When did that video come out? It was a decade ago, more than a decade ago.
Yeah, more than a decade at this point.
The entire idea of what Plumbers is in the gaming space comes from James Rolfe's video. Nobody knew what this was before James Rolfe did that video. So
Right.
everyone's perception of it.
Yeah, in the mainstream
from
sense,
that.
absolutely. I became familiar with the game just because I saw it in the back of a magazine in the 90s, and it had like a print ad that was pretty much like the front cover of the 3DO release, which is a lot of weird words, a lot of weird screenshots, and I mean, that's basically what the game is, right? It's just weird sequences of images. So, George, when Joe comes to you and says, like, okay, let's lay this out, I'm kind of curious, what was the kind of technical skeleton of what you started doing at that time?
Well, I knew that, from the videos that I had seen, that the game itself to recreate wouldn't be super complicated to do at all. I started off working on a prototype of sorts in one specific game engine that, it unfortunately didn't pan out with that game engine, so we had to switch over to another one. But I think overall that was a change for the better. Some ideas got scrapped, some ideas did not, and I think now we have a better product overall.
Yeah. You're unsure of yourself as you say that.
You're talking about the point in time when we were gonna have a variety of like mini games.
Yeah, we were gonna have.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
We were thinking of building out some mini games, and then at a certain point we decided, because it was like almost like three different things we were trying to do at once, and at a certain point it was around when you decided and told me, hey, we can't do this and we need to do an engine change. It was around the same point that we just started deciding we were going to hammer in really on the documentary or the contextual type of package over anything else.
Right.
And so the minigame stuff we felt was like, well, this doesn't really supplement the package we have decided we're actually trying to make now. So all that stuff got cut when we moved over to another engine.
We can talk about those things a little bit, actually, because I mean, at this point, the game is out as people are listening to this. But do you remember what those minigames were? Kind of what they were?
They were basically just clones of known games. We had what was it, Tapper or something like that?
There was a Tapper style one that was,
Yeah.
I think, themed around the plumbing aspect.
Okay.
Right.
And then like the whole plumbing thing led to me doing I won't say the name out loud because I don't, this is now a retail product. So
Uh-huh.
but I had done a clone of a famous 2-player plumbing themed
Very well
arcade
known
game.
Uh-huh.
I do remember being sad when we did that change and got rid of that stuff because I was actually pretty happy with
I was
with
excited.
what I coded for that. It felt really good.
That was
Maybe that'll live again another day.
that was the part that I was excited for too, because it's like, this is a game, but not really. But the mini games were actual games that we could have.
Well, and I think at a certain point, I made the comment that, hey, if we make these mini games too good, they become the focal point of the package
Yeah,
because
right.
they're if you want to talk minute to minute gameplay, they were the quote unquote best part of the package,
Yeah.
and we felt that distracted from the actual game itself, quote unquote the game itself, and the documentary style content we wanted to build around the game. So it just made sense. Like these things are too much of a distraction.
Yeah, I remember when I was brought on board this project on an official capacity in 2022, and worked on it pretty much consistently since that point. And I remember looking over some of these kind of long-term plans that had been in the game, like those mini games. And it was like, well, it should be mentioned in the commentary here that Joe is a pretty good game designer as well, and George also has some pretty interesting ideas and good execution. So it's something that will live on in another game, I think. But as Joe mentioned, when I looked at the whole package we were kind of going for, it did detract from, I shouldn't say the seriousness we were going for, but we had kind of coined the term interactive documentary before other products came on the market which also have this tagline. Wonderful friends of ours that did those as well. So it's kind of like those would be funny, but do they distract?
Mm-hmm.
Does it take away from either the levity or just the context of what the individuals in the game will be talking about? Because eventually we did get unprecedented access to the Plumbers history for the original team that was involved. Then, of course, Jeannie, who's on screen here, is what's her name of the game again? It's like Jane.
Jane in the game, Jeannie Basone.
Yeah, Jeannie Basone in real life. Hollywood from
Glow.
And I knew her for a little bit before even joining Limited Run. So it was kind of natural for me to reach out to her. So, Joe, I mean, when did this even get announced? Do you remember? I mean,
I don't remember
LRG3,
anymore. So
yeah?
it was an LRG3 when we announced this.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was pre-pandemic.
I
don't remember.
Yeah.
It's hard. So Limited Run is an extremely fast-paced place. We do a lot, and it is very easy for something that's 2+ years behind in my brain for it to get mixed up between years. I don't remember when we announced this, but I do know when we announced it, we had talked with Gene to do sorry, my brain just like melted. Gene or Jeannie?
Jeannie. Yeah.
Jeannie. What, yeah,
it's hard because in the game she's Jane.
In the game she's Jane, and when I
Jeannie.
saw her name spelled out for the first time, I thought it was Jean, and when she said it out loud as Jeannie, a little mixed up. Jeannie's involvement initially, she's involved in the announcement of it.
Yes.
So you had put us in touch with Jeannie.
Absolutely.
Quite early, but that was the extent of our plans with her at that time.
Right.
She was not going to be involved in the actual product or any of the additional marketing, but it just ended up being that we had her out here. We talked to her, and she was an absolute delight and had a lot of really cool insight into how this was put together. A lot of really fond memories of her time spent working on it, and she was like happy to talk about it. So we're like, wow, we should involve her a little bit more, and that kind of ballooned the whole thing.
Yeah, that was my feeling when so as I mentioned, I came in 2022, became an official part of Limited Run as lead producer on development, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I felt like the company had kind of earmarked me to join this project from the start. My first day at the job, actually, Josh was like, well, obviously you're joining the Plumbers team. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess, obviously. It's like, you flew me out all the way here from Oslo to say that. But I was very excited about it. And I had an immediate discussion with you at the time where, okay, as I mentioned, the skeleton laid out was really good. George had basically remade the game in quotation marks.
Yeah, we had a functional version at that time before Audi even showed up, right, George?
Yeah. Right, correct.
It was fully functional, and there was kind of preliminary ideas for including the original images rescanned, which didn't pan out. We'll talk a little bit about that. But when I joined, the first thing I talked to Joe about was basically we should lean into the context around the game, make an interactive documentary style thing where the game and its context is complemented by all these smaller videos at the time. We didn't want to make a full-length documentary that could go just simply on a Blu-ray or something. We kind of wanted to cut them into chapters and have specific topics talked in depth that gave this game its context.
Well, what was important to me about that too is that if we did like a full-length documentary that was included, say, alongside the game, a Blu-ray or whatever, and it wasn't integrated into the game,
the software,
the concern was that players wouldn't engage with it, or that every player wouldn't see it. And we felt from the start, especially myself, I brought this up many times, there's absolutely some content in this game that I think requires some context, not only around the content itself and it being made, but in our intentions in redistributing it, right? And so it was very important from the start. They were like, no, this documentary style content, the story we want to tell here needs to be present in the software around what the player's experiencing. Otherwise, they may not notice it. And And again, it goes back to right from the start, we knew that what we didn't want to do, even though this is what came across our desks initially, was just, hey, just do this.
Yeah.
What we didn't want to do was just put the game back out, because what is interesting about that?
The internal mantra about the game when I joined was basically like, well, the greatest remaster for the worst game, and so the entire software had to kind of reflect that. And so, what do you do when you remaster something in film, in music? There's always documentation, documentaries, context supplied to showcase, okay, why was this work put into this product? And as you said, if we just made a Blu-ray with a few videos on it, I think a lot of people, not for just the sake of like, well, they aren't interested or don't really think about it, but a lot of people collect and they keep it sealed. There was like all these thoughts we had around it that was like, okay, we need to make sure that the software itself is contextualizing the game.
The software needs to tell the story that we are trying to tell around the software, right?
Right.
Like, it needed to be very integrated. Now, I want to talk for a little bit about the remastering process.
Yeah.
Like, I want to start with George, and then I know, Audie, you have things to say about what we did. But
Sure.
George, do you remember when this first started and we knew, like, okay, we're doing like a 4K version of this game, and what that first challenge was, looking at the material we had to work with? I want you to see, like, can you kind of walk us through what did you start with in terms of assets, and then how did you get what you have, and what our first step at trying to remaster this was?
I started off with a whole lot of images from the original game, and then it just came down to figuring out, okay, how can I make these assets cleaner, 4K, and if for those of you who have already played the game, you know that there are two different versions of those images, and the ones that I started off with, the ones that that eventually made aren't the final ones. So I think Audie was the one that came in and really worked hard to make those final versions of those
We had some bad ideas initially. It was just like, well, do we just do like a nearest neighbor upscale to 4K of these things so that we preserve them exactly as they were? We tried a couple of different ways of bringing them, but we weren't really sure what the best way to remaster it was. And then, Audie came in and was just like, no.
Well, so the thing, there is a actual video kind of showcasing the process for this called Seeing Clear, I think, in the work design documents, at least that's the name of it. So do check that out and plumb the depths. But the images that George was originally working with, I believe, was extracted from the PC version of this game. There was a 3DO in the PC version.
Yeah, everything's based off the PC version.
That's correct, right?
You remember,
it was the PC version.
You had a unique struggle in the beginning of this, trying to even sort out the structure of like, okay, what's the progression of all these images? How do we put together the timeline, all that stuff? Like, you remember sitting down, you had to figure all that out down to like the millisecond.
It was trying to figure out which scene follows the last, et cetera, and I was just trying to figure out, okay, I guess I have to watch a long play about this and then figure it out, and evidently that wasn't the case. Thankfully, there are fans out there who are extremely there are fans out there who I guess really love this game and managed to figure out what the order of operations was, which image comes after which, where do the decisions lead, and so that information was extremely helpful for figuring out what goes where.
Well, and it was the timing for the music and stuff too.
Oh, the timing for the music. Also, the fans definitely were able to help out with that.
You say fans, plural, but like we're not sure. It might be one person.
Might be one person.
Yeah. I can confirm it's not me. There was suspicion. I remember when I joined the company. I was like, "Did you make this?" And I was like, "No." So I'm not that crazy. But yeah, it was like 640 by 480 images, BMP, I believe.
BMP, right?
Yeah, on the original. So not only, man, you had a lot of setbacks with that, because those images are index colored, so they have a lot of loss of information. Obviously, they're very low res in today's resolution.
Right.
The modern TVs and such. You can smooth them out by like doing bilinear filtering and things like this, but it's still gonna look real bad.
Right.
And unfortunately, that was kind of where it was stuck with that feature for a long time, because there was no real answer to this. And people might be already thinking, well, AI upscaling was already around. And yes, I mean that was the answer in the end. But just generic AI upscaling won't help you at that point where we were.
Well, what's interesting about this too is, you were doing AI upscaling for this, so we got to kind of recontextualize the development here too.
Yeah.
When you proposed and you started doing the AI upscaling for these pictures, this was well before things like Chat GPT were in any sort of mainstream understanding. Like, this was a pretty unique idea.
I'm not aware. I mean, at the time of this recording, at least, which is a little bit before the final Gold Master, I am not aware of another game that, for photographic images, uses AI upscaling the way we did it.
Right.
Because when I joined the company and joined the team, one of my first conversations with you, George, was to create me a GUI. Because I needed something. I needed like a visual way to keep track of all this game is based on about 822 images, all things considered. There are some repeating images, so it actually goes down to about 700 something.
Right.
But basically, I needed something, and what it came down to was that I had to. So I'll go into this in the video I'm doing about just image upscaling, but I had to create my own models, and I wanted to do it the ethical way. So I contacted both of the actors in the game. Jeannie Bazone was, of course, involved, and also Edward Fasulu, and had them give me images that were from that time and also more recent, because they don't have like endless amount of images. Now, it is lucky for us that the two main actors in this game was models. So that meant that we had a lot of references for a lot of parts of their bodies. So image upscaling was a little bit easier from that standpoint. But basically it came down to that I had to create an individual model for Jeannie Bazone, an individual model, AI model for Edward Fasulu, and then another one that was concentrating on backgrounds and composite together up to 4 or 5 different image upscales, and then kind of separate the layers between the different outputs for these individual models. So it was an extremely lengthy and difficult process that I will never do again, George.
I think the upscaling aspect, like remastering these photos, I think that's the most time-consuming part of the entire development.
Yeah, you asked me to calculate the time, and it took me about 9 months of actual like weekly effort, because I had to go back again and again, because the AI wasn't really, even with all the materials I had to create my own models and batch process all these images, there were just certain times where the actual information on the original images wasn't good enough. And so what happened was that the AI would try to appropriate a lot of details. And when you went back on just first iCast, it would look fine. You'd look at it and be like, that's the image, because you'd see the same colors and this kind of like same composition. But then when you look closer at it, it's like, hold on, like there's something really strange going on in the background.
Oh, you want to talk about, speaking of strange things, do you remember, I don't know if you were around for this, but do you remember the first attempts we made at doing any sort of AI upscaling for these, and everyone's skin looked like fried chicken?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we actually joked for a while, like, should we include fried chicken mode and have these images as like an alternate?
Yeah, I mean that is the trappings of AI upscaling. So the reason why I even know about it is that when I worked in Japan, the anime industry had started using AI upscaling, and so I worked on a lot with that. But that is very easy because it has very strong black outlines, 2 shades. This kind of like AI is perfect for it. But for a photograph, is much more complex. And the usual trappings is that you get all this like wavy patterns on skins and stuff. It looks plasticky. You get all this like noise introduced, and so we did get that with this as well. So I actually made a custom filter for the game, which mimicked like a kind of like a Kodak film look. I scanned my own personal family photos, zoomed in, and tried to replicate as much as I could that look. And that was definitely the lengthiest process, I think, of the whole game production.
I am.
This is my favorite part of the game. Just this sequence that is just them running around
Hollywood.
Hollywood, just like, just. So what Jeannie had told us, like, this whole sequence was them just like running around, having fun, taking pictures in random places.
Yeah.
Oh, we should talk about something. You know, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. But there was a conversation that I think came up in the other commentary that's included in this package. But we had looked at some of these photos. We were asking about the sources for the photos because we wanted to see if we could find any further sources.
We had a few, actually.
Well, in what we talked about was Jeannie's memory was that some of these scenes were actually acted out.
Yes.
And her memory was that it was on film, on camera, and these were stills from that. And we tried to see if we could track down any source of that.
Yeah. So when we started going into production with actual access to the production people, and then Jeannie especially, she got us in touch with various people. Like Joe said, a majority of the game was filmed. You can see kind of like there is a lot of different types of image quality on even the original images. Some seem like they're Polaroids. Some seem like they have a lot of like motion blur. So it's clearly like from a still rather than like a actual
I think
camera.
we're seeing that right here.
Yeah. So a lot of this was acted out, and it makes me think that they probably filmed a lot of this thinking it was going to fit on a CD-ROM, and then didn't really understand that there's still a size restriction on how much video you can include, especially back then. You know, compression and whatnot, codecs were very different. We did have access to, so if people are wondering kind of like why didn't we just use those original images, it's because we only had access to one or two like Polaroids, I think, Jeannie found, and they weren't very good. They're very faded. I think it's like the one is where they are eating. It's in the credits. It's them eating together and kind of having this celebration for finishing the game production. So it's like that doesn't even help in terms of like the game scope. So yeah, we had no choice. We had to actually reconstruct these images as best as we could. And even then, it was like I went on Google Maps because she gave me the address. It looks very similar still, this area. And so I managed to kind of find references even and draw in myself some details that the AI just couldn't do. It was an ordeal, but it was worth it though. I think it looks
was
pretty good.
I'm
George, was it worth it?
I'm impressed by the amount of work you put into restoring these images.
Well, I just remember.
I'm impressed by the amount of work you put into restoring this game.
George, you're the superhero here because you did it. And I mean, as I mentioned, the game's skeleton was done. So you had already kind of done the majority of that work, but there's also Plumb the Depths, which is the mode you go into to unlock all this.
It's funny because the actual game itself was done for a while. It was the stuff surrounding the game that was going to take more time to build out. But the Plumb the Depths was fun to make. You know, all the stuff around it was fun to make, kind of to make this interactive documentary, as we call it. And
yeah, I remember that like Plumb the Depths was a decision that was made, I think, shortly before I joined.
So Plumb the Depths was actually a decision that was made outside of this team.
Yeah.
It was like we got the package across our desk. They're like, hey, we want you to do this. And then there was just this random out of nowhere thing where Josh was just like, I want this kind of mode in the game.
Yeah.
He had no idea beyond that. He didn't know what he wanted to be in it or like anything. He was just like, this has to be in there. So it basically fell on us to like kind of figure out, okay, well, we should do this. And I've come to actually quite love Plumb the Depths. I think that's when you got a first version of it that was working visually the way I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Then I was like convinced. I was like, okay, this is great. But
I have to admit too that I was very unsure of this mode. I heard about it, and then it was always it was structured out. It was on paper, and I was just looking at it, and I was like, I don't know. I'm very unsure. And then as we start getting assets, we'll talk a little bit about just the general visual design of everything else as well. But once we got the assets for the maze, and we kind of got, because I knew that we were kind of looking at. Joe had told me like, hey, the screensaver from Windows 95, like that wrap
The
maze, the
maze.
maze.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're looking at. And I was like, okay, era accurate, that's fine, but how do we actually technically do this and make it fun and kind of fit this whole package? But George, I mean, that was something, man. I think I only saw like one prototype before I was like, man, you nailed it.
Yeah, I surprised myself too. I was concerned that maybe that was something I wouldn't be able to pull off, but no, I'm happy that I was able to, and we've made significant improvements upon it. I mean, you folks at home are already playing it probably, so
Well, we
just
don't know. We can't commit to improvements because what if, for whatever reason, between the time we record this and we ship the game, we decide to do something that ruins Plumber Depths?
Yeah, why did you
And
do that,
What
George?
if by the time this game ships, Plumb the Depths isn't even in the game? I don't know.
Oh, that'd be
Oh,
something.
that would be.
Well, now we just
Then where are they unlocking this content? Where are they?
We'd be on the Lost Media wiki right now.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's going to be in there, or else I'm demanding a bonus. But like,
Somebody's trying to lock us in this door.
well, that's fine. This is where we were meant to end anyway. But yeah, I mean, Plumb the Depths was one thing, right?
It was really tricky. Like you said, like I don't think there was a unified idea from the start. Like, oh, we know exactly what we're doing.
I think
and I
that
don't think there
was
was a unified like confidence either.
Yeah,
but
because you were not sure, George. I remember you coming to me and it's like, how do we actually do this?
Yeah.
And do we have to do this? And I talked to Josh a little bit.
The
I was
answer
like,
was yes.
yeah, it was like, you have to go out,
Ah.
leave my office right now. And it's like, all right, Josh said politely that we should do this.
Yeah.
And, it was like,
It's the right call in the end.
Absolutely.
Even if he had no idea what he actually wanted out of it,
yeah,
forcing us to include it, I think in the end made us make something neat out of it.
because it became sort of like a binding. We were already kind of like, well, we're doing menus right now. We just have a set of menus with items in them. It's like, how do we contextualize our own work? It's like we are sitting here creating all this context for the game and all the things surrounding it, but what are we actually doing to bind our work together into a full software package
Mm-hmm.
for commercial use? And Plumb the Depths kind of was like an eye-opener for us, where it's like, oh, that was what we were missing.
Right.
So before we head out of this, I also want to talk about the fact that, so Joe had this idea, and this was also early on when I joined. It was like, I want this package to look like a real bad CD-ROM experience from the 90s.
Yeah, so we talked about a handful of things, like we didn't want to try and make everything a joke,
Yeah.
right? But there is one part that we all kind of universally relented on, and it was like, well, it shouldn't inherently be a joke. It is a joke, but we wanted it to look era appropriate to the industry that made this game, because so
Yeah.
much of the story about the creation of this game is about the story of the birth of CD-ROM interactive media.
Yes.
Right. And so we wanted the package to fully encompass that. So
Yeah.
every screen of this package was designed to, for better or worse, really accurately reflect what menu
Yeah.
font style was like at the time. We have some, poor George had to code some of this stuff, but there's menu functionality in this that makes absolutely no sense. I recall so, and we had a graphic designer put together the UI for this, and she is very talented, and so much of what we asked her to do was counterproductive to her, or counterintuitive to her skills. She seemed a little nervous about this task. But some of the things I love, George, is we put together certain menus, and on our first pass, I was like, no. There's a problem here in some of these, because if you push right on the joystick, you know what direction the selector is going to go.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, because that's not how it was. You should be, I was like, about 40% of the time when you push a direction on the D-pad or thumbstick, you should be unsure of where it's going to go. Is it going up and to the left? Is it going up and to the right? If you do hear any of what's going on in the background right now, it seems that
we're just going out of business.
Yeah,
it's
there's-
fine.
there-
We're just
there's-
dismantling the company as we speak.
there's
This is
a
our last
van
game.
just driving through here, knocking ductwork out. We are conducting this commentary during a hurricane.
Yeah.
This
Anyway.
makes me think of for anyone who's out there playing. Have you made the cat bark yet?
Oh,
is that what it was?
George. You gave a heavy hint there. Yeah, there are secrets in this menu. Because the menu, man, I didn't see it for a long time. Because as you mentioned, we work with an artist. Her name is Vivienne Ducharme. And she's very talented, very good. And we were basically asking her, like, do not use any of your talents. We didn't...
It's shocking. I think maybe what was one of the funniest things about this package, and it's something that you don't get in the final package as the player.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing about this package is almost how serious we took it.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
like every players will have no idea, but every menu. Do you guys remember? We've had meetings that went on for hours, an hour or longer about like what options were on a screen. We would spend so much time in repeated meetings about these screens, about like this maybe funny bit we want to have on the screen, or like how the selection should look, all this different stuff. We spent so much time on every piece of the UI of this, and so many detailed conversations about what it's supposed to look like to get to. Well, you've seen it now, what it is.
It's funny because we speak about this, and really the work and detail that went into that menu construction. There's a famous fighting game out there which has a lot of characters from different IPs in it, and the creator of that is always very meticulous about their menus. It's different for every iteration, and I think his wife is the one doing it. And I have to say that this is comparable to that legendary franchise because we spent just as much time ruining a menu as he has been constructing.
There were so many times that we went and we were like, no, this can be worse. But the thing
that was the opening dialogue on every meeting with this could be worse. How do we get there?
Right. Well, and there's also something important to talk about. Not only could it be worse, but there's a line. And I had to very frequently kind of skirt that line and tell George when, and
I
sometimes
crossed that line a few
sometimes
times,
you made a career out of crossing that line.
Yeah.
Where I came with very serious, like I'd give you like very bullet pointed, serious, articulated reasons about why a joke has now gone too far.
Yeah.
It's now less funny.
It became like those meetings became kind of like a crash course in comedy for you, George.
It was like we would have one typo in there, an intentional typo, and we would all die laughing. And then George would put one more in, and I'm like, George, we need to talk. You need to understand that you've now ruined the joke, and it's not funny anymore.
We are watching the credits here. We didn't really comment much on the game, but there is another commentary with actually Jean Bazzone where we talk about reaching out to her. We did get most of the surviving people involved, either via phone, email, or with us in person. And Jeannie was an incredible asset to us. And really, thanks to her, we could actually sit here today and do this commentary because she really injected life into this project. And we knew, man, we got something here thanks to her. Just an incredible person overall. But this was a lot of fun. It was a lot of memories for me. It's only been like a little bit over a year since we started, all three of us together.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say like the version of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties TBD title that you are playing right now, really from the point of this recording to when it started, was about a year.
It was about a year, yeah.
There were other iterations of it before then that would have been far lower scope that we changed our mind on. But this production, I'll say by the time it's done, probably a year and a half.
Yeah, I would say that is pretty accurate now. And then you take into consideration everything that went in before it.
Much longer than the original production of the game.
Much longer. The original production, I think they said, was about 4 or 5 weeks. But
just a little bit longer.
A little bit longer. Thanks, everyone, for picking this up and listening to us. And
Thank you.
See you in the other extras.
See ya.
Bye.